May 1998 was an inauspicious moment in the history of the South Asian continent, one of the world's poorest regions. On the 11th and 13th of this month, India detonated its nuclear devices. Pakistan followed suit and demonstrated its nuclear might 2 weeks later. These scenes set off street celebrations across the country, with jubilant Pakistanis taking to aerial shooting and distributing sweetmeats. But the celebrations were short-lived. The international community responded to the nuclear tests with crippling sanctions both on India and Pakistan. Within days of the detonations, all bilateral and international aid and credit flows to Pakistan were halted. The impact on its already fledgling economy was devastating and triggered fears of an economic collapse. Foreign investments dried up, and with that, growth stagnated. But despite the economic crisis, Pakistan's war machinery continued to thrive. More than 30% of Pakistan's national budget is spent on the military establishment, leaving little for the maintenance and development of the social sector. Massive defence expenditure contrasts sharply with the poverty visible in all spheres of life across the country. Despite assurances from successive governments, poverty in Pakistan has grown significantly. Almost a third of the country's 143 million people live below the poverty line.
Last decade of the 90s was a difficult decade for Pakistan because Pakistan has been growing at about 6% per annum for 30 years in terms of its GDP growth from 60 to 90, and in 90 it slowed down to 4%. And that has increased poverty, it has affected our exports, and it has also affected the level of employment.
Unemployment, low wages and an ever-increasing cost of living are just some of the pressing problems forcing these children to sweat and scavenge rather than attend school. Many of them are school dropouts simply because their parents cannot afford their education and need a supplementary source of income. The aggregate monthly income of such families is around $30, while fees for private schools run as high as $100 a month for the ordinary levels. Officially, just over 3 million children are engaged in different sectors of Pakistan's economy, but independent surveys put the number as high as 8 million.
Child labor situation is quite serious in Pakistan. The problem is that there is lack of political will on the part of the government. There is lack of acknowledgement on the part of the relevant authorities and the general public as well. I think the first thing which we all need to do to handle the problem is to acknowledge that the problem exists.
The bulk of child workers, a staggering 66%, is employed in the agricultural sector. Some 11% serve in the manufacturing industry. The rest work in street enterprises, such as restaurants and mechanical workshops, or render personal services, mostly as domestic servants. Children under 10 years old form a major chunk of the labour force working the thousands of brick kilns across Pakistan. Although the Bonded Labour System Abolition Act of 1992 disallows it, children continue to labour at home-based brick kilns and carpet weaving units.
Problem of child labor is because the poverty in Pakistan itself, unemployment is increasing, as we all know. So unless we address the issues of reducing poverty and reducing unemployment rate in Pakistan, eliminating child labor in the long run is not easy, because we have the methods, we have the approaches to do it, but we have to go deeper than just addressing child labor itself. We have to address the pool from where child labor is coming, and that is from the poverty.
Efforts by the International Labour Organization and others to combat child labour pale in the face of the enormity of the problem. Poverty and poor implementation of existing laws blunt almost all of the initiatives aimed at eliminating child labour. Former Minister Shaheen Atikur Rahman says a country like Pakistan cannot change overnight.
Even poverty comes because of illiteracy, because the dependents are more. So the main focus here is literacy. You see Southeast Asia, you see Bangladesh, you see other countries where these three systems, adult education, young education and early childhood, 3 to 5, these three systems have to go together to get a total literate population. Just no way out.
Children in their early teens perform difficult, hazardous jobs but earn far less than their senior counterparts. Nevertheless, the small amount these children earn is crucial for survival in an economic environment pushing a very large section of society to the edge. This is a society where leaders are focused more on their political advancement than a commitment to the pressing problems of millions. But Shaheen Atikur Rahman says criticism of the government overlooks the bitter reality of life in Pakistan.
Because of world focus, there was a lot of emphasis on the export industry. So their children are getting more breaks than, let's say, in the non-exporting units like the agriculture sector, like the car denting sector, like the brick kilns. Those which have an internal market are still being largely out of school, because we keep on forgetting we are a very poor country. Everyone unfortunately sees the glittery side of Pakistan, but the poverty of the hidden majority is a very frightening phenomenon.
For decades, the Pakistani state has approached the concept of development with a prime focus on urbanisation. But by locating industries in major towns and cities, successive governments have inadvertently created a rural-urban divide to the disadvantage of Pakistan's rural population. Experts attribute the disparities and the exploitation of children to the failure of the state in Pakistan.
The state is largely to be blamed because of the numbers. It's an issue which cannot be handled by the civil society or even by the general public. General public per se is not organized. So consequently, it has to be the state, and we have to look towards the way the West was able to handle the situation.
Some video rental shops in Peshawar, for instance, are places for rendezvous between young boys and their adult fans. By allowing themselves to be abused, these boys hope to make money otherwise difficult to come by. Members of the local administration covertly protect these video shops. The presence of tens of thousands of Afghan refugees in and around Peshawar has had an adverse impact on local farmers and daily wage workers. Afghans, themselves desperate to earn a living, edge them out of the market by offering cheaper rates, and this affects the plight of children as well. Some scavenge through garbage dumps to survive, others work as smugglers. Traders and shopkeepers use these boys to carry electronic goods for them, from the border town of Tokham into markets on the periphery of Peshawar. More than 46% of Peshawar's population of 2 million is under the age of 15. Many of them scrape by scavenging for recyclable rubbish. Jahanzeb, 14, and Javed Khan, 12, are members of a big scavengers community.
دا مجبوری ده زه ګورم چې که خورګانې مې ماښام لپاره څه روټۍ بندوبست نشته نو بیا زه
The stories of these boys are more or less the same. The poverty of their parents has forced them into this job to feed their big families. It's our responsibility to help our parents, they say. From dawn to dusk, both Jahanzeb and Liaquat Ali scavenge through garbage dumps near residential areas. No scrap of paper, sliver of glass or bone escapes their eyes. Regardless of hygiene or safety, these self-employed children are moving in a vicious cycle. Gulsanga's fate is no different. With nothing known of her parents, Gulsanga's patrons are preparing her for a new role in life. Dancer, courtesan, entertainer to fans who travel from cities like Rawalpindi and Peshawar to watch such shows in the ancient Hira Mandi, the red light district of Lahore. This city of 6 million owes its reputation not only to monuments of the Mughal era, but also to places like this. Even during the most oppressive rule of dictator General Zia-ul-Haq from 1977 until 1988, the bazaar remained vibrant. Every female child here is brought up learning how to sing, dance, and provide sexual favors to clients. The initiation of the girl begins as early as 12 years of age, with virgins sometimes auctioned and outright abuse.
Whether they enjoy the facilities and the benefits what other children do, and if they're not enjoying that, like education, like other extracurricular activities, and if these girls are not enjoying that and they're facilitating and benefiting other parts of whether they're families, whether they're businessmen, so they are basically denied by their own rights.
But Lahore is also known for its countless factories and furnaces, which melt and mould construction steel, heavy and light machinery, and produce textiles, providing income to tens of thousands of children. In many of these factories, workers labour without security or safety protection, no regulations for working hours, and no rest breaks under conditions which demand them. Baghbanpura, for example, is the heart of Lahore's auto workshop industry. Thousands of children are working long shifts here. Being juniors, these children are responsible for preparing the workshop for the day ahead. The health hazards these children face are great. Petrol and kerosene constantly surround them. They even use these liquids to wash off dusty grease and thicker fluids, resulting in damage to their skin, eyes and lungs. Children handling chemicals and acids are at an even greater risk. Most of these children do all this for a paltry daily wage of 10 rupees, or 15 cents. Those with a few years' experience are paid a fixed monthly salary. Lahore also houses a huge roadside hotel market which rides high on Lahorites' love for food. For scores of young boys, the day usually starts with sunrise and seldom ends before midnight. They wash dishes, serve food in and outside the restaurant, toiling for at least 15 hours. For some, sexual abuse by owners or managers means an even longer working day. They're the last to go to bed and the first to rise. Despite long and arduous working hours, the average daily income of these boys rarely exceeds 30 rupees, or about 50 cents. Here too, existing labour laws are rarely adhered to. Lahore's proximity to Kasur and Sialkot, major hubs of Pakistan's leather industry, have turned it into a booming shoe manufacturing market. This industry also engages a large number of miners as workers for cheaper wages. From preparing lace to assembling shoes, children are a crucial component of the production process, labouring in deplorable working conditions. Official checks on employment conditions and the working environment are at best nominal and at worst non-existent.
Unless there is stability in any country, development will be difficult to make progress. So I think government, NGOs, political parties has to make this country stable in order that investment will come in, industry will grow, economy will grow, employment will grow, and thereby poverty can be reduced and child labour will be eliminated.
A 4-hour drive away from Lahore lies the town of Sahiwal. Here, over 41% of the inhabitants are below the age of 15, mostly working in cotton fields, ginning factories and brick kilns. Many of these brick kilns operate exclusively on a system of debt bondage. So complicated is the system that a large number of labourers are born indebted, fated to work at the kiln from the moment they are able to lift bricks. The system condemns them to a life of slavery. They can neither negotiate their terms of employment nor clear their debt, which multiplies over time because of a complex markup mechanism. Bonded labourers work 12 to 14 hours a day, 6 days a week, but the salary they earn is still not enough to provide them with 3 meals a day, not to mention retiring their debt. Bonded labour is not restricted to Sahiwal alone. Ravo, for instance, is a victim of the bonded labour system in southern Sindh province. Ravo's whole family has been slaving for local landlords at gunpoint. Ravo says that with great difficulty they fled from the village where they've tended the fields of their cruel landlord for years. Now they're living at this camp, unemployed and waiting for a saviour to provide them with food or a job. About 25 kilometres from Sahiwal lies the town of Kamir. Due to its fine weaving and cheap rates, Kamir town's carpet weaving industry is booming. But it's the small fingers of hundreds of children producing these fine carpets. Out of roughly 2,500 workers here, 2/3 are children in their early teens. The work is painful as well as unhealthy. Children sit in cramped positions for hours, retarding their growth by blocking an adequate blood supply to their lower body. They continuously inhale wool dust, poor lighting damages their eyes, and chemical dyes are an additional hazard. Late loan payments, mistakes and delays in production are punished with severe beatings. These families are caught in the same vicious cycle of debt bondage as the brick kiln workers in Sahiwal. Another place bustling with a high percentage of child workers is Kasur, where nearly half the population is aged under 15. Kasur is home to several industries, but its reputation is based on hundreds of leather tanneries employing children in large numbers. They form an integral part of the whole tanning process, which involves the handling of hazardous chemicals without any protective gear. These children spray leather pieces with chemicals, leap through puddles of chemical waste and carry their loads on their shoulders, exposing them to infections and nauseous toxic fumes they must continuously inhale. Glass bangle manufacturing is as much a part of southern Hyderabad as tanning is to Kasur. Pakistan's largest glass bangle manufacturing operation is situated here. Here, thousands of children hand their youth the colourful bangles. Nishtar Bangle Market is the country's biggest glass bangle wholesale outlet, as well as the inlet for the city's numerous home-based setups. A visit to a home is heart-wrenching. A small room with over 24 workers on the job, a large number of them children. In poor light and bad ventilation, they're confined to these rooms for up to 16 hours a day. Their average wage is around 80 cents. These workers use low-light kerosene oil lamps to round up the bangles. In the glass factories that produce not just bangles but test tubes, beakers, chandeliers and light bulbs, the children are forced to labour in extremely harsh conditions. When the furnace temperatures surge, the workplace turns into a hell on earth. This environment invariably takes a toll on a child's health. Chronic asthma, bronchitis, eye problems, skin burns and tuberculosis are all typical problems. Bruises and cuts through glass splinters are also routine, but little medication is available for treatment. Do Pakistan's children deserve this? Should they be scavenging through garbage dumps, weaving carpets and making bricks, or should they be attending school, Can the state continue to ignore the future of Pakistan while pointing the finger of blame at its economic problems?